I think for system integrators, MSPs, resellers, even if the economy tanks or we go through a really, really challenging cycle here, the amount of complexity out there, fantastic opportunity to help people achieve what they're trying to do because things are so interconnected. A lot of times people think it's simple, but no, it's getting immensely more complex every day.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome to the Incident Report. Adam, how are you doing today?
Good, Paul. Doing well. Been a busy couple of weeks here at the Quest home front, but going really well. Pretty excited about some growth that's going on in our company and things that are happening. But I saw this article, and I actually sent you an article because the listeners probably don't know the intricate, detailed back office show prep that goes on for these episodes. But you oftentimes send me lots of articles that are of interest, and this time I saw this one, and primarily it was of interest because a couple of years ago I wrote a fantastic blog piece. I mean, industry renowned, recognized. I think it might have been picked up by Forbes, not quite sure, but it was comparing the cloud service providers to the homes of the hit TV show on HBO during the time about the Lannisters and all the different families in the that pursued the Iron Throne in the hit TV show called The Game of Thrones. So a little bit of a flashback. We'll put the link in there. If I'm sure people have it saved in their favorites, but just in case they don't, we'll put the link in there from my previous blog around who is going to dominate. If it was going to be Google, or if it was going to be AWS, which I believe I compared to the Lannisters, or Google Cloud. I forget who Google Cloud was, but it was masterfully done. And today was another article where it shows how those cloud service providers are doing from a revenue share standpoint.
We should mention the article today we're reading from is not from Adam. This is not an Adam's piece part 2, but I think it's probably safe to say, Adam, this is definitely inspired by your powerful work.
Yeah, it probably is powered from my powerful work. It was really a legacy that was generated there that I believe will carry on, at least a week.
And if anybody wants to read this article, we'll link it in the description. We'll link both Adam's as well as this one. And the one we're reading from today is from channelede.com, and it's called Cloud Market Share 2022, Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. And it starts, what type of cloud market share do Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform each hold, and what are the implications for the top 250 public cloud MSPs? So here are some latest data, and the data is collected by Canalys. And some of the data that the article cites is cloud service market share in Q1 of 2022. The top 3 cloud infrastructure providers were AWS, 33% market share, Microsoft Azure, 21%, and Google Cloud, 8%. The Google Cloud Services market dominance, those big 3, just those 3, cloud public service providers, CSPs, now control a combined 62% of the market, which is up from 58% combined market share as Q3. So still growing, and 4% from Q3 of 2022. And overall, cloud service spending, worldwide cloud infrastructure service spending reaches $59.9 billion in Q1 of 22, up 34% compared to Q1 of 21. The big 3 CSPs grew at a combined 42% in Q1 of 22 compared to Q1 of 21. That's a lot of numbers, which are great, but I'm interested in your analysis, Adam. What are the implications of this?
Well, I think it's fantastic. It was a cool little quick snapshot. AWS is still the leader at 33%, but Microsoft, from a spend standpoint, their Azure spending is 21%, with Google Cloud kind of picking up the back around a little under 10%.
I'm kind of shocked Google Cloud is only at 8%.
Google Cloud they have some interesting applications. They have some, good services and some real deep, analytic capabilities. But a lot of Google's businesses, a majority of their revenue still comes from that search bar. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as much as they probably hate people saying that, the majority of Google's revenue still comes from ad revenue, from hey, going to Google it and searching it and giving away your data as far as what you're Googling, what you're interested in. And they sell your interests and your Google searches, your queries, and your habits to people and make revenue off you. Remember, anytime you give away something, anytime you're getting something for free in Silicon Valley, you're the product. So it's not, they have a huge amount of revenue coming from that. And Google Cloud's cool. They do some great things. I know some people who run some small, medium businesses. They have some cool on-ramps for them, Google Meets and all that kind of stuff. But in the industry, in the enterprise, Microsoft is really, really taking share pretty aggressively in their subscription businesses as well.
And their subscription business and I can speak firsthand because I'm a part of the Xbox, their gigantic Xbox ecosystem. They've been blowing that up recently, like just acquiring every little company they can out there, growing that subscription model.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about subscription models, I think we're about to find out how sticky they really are.
Mm.
But the software industry really fundamentally changed the way that they sold and maintained licenses. Because the way it used to be was you'd buy a large software platform, and then you'd have to do these renewals and upgrades, right? So you'd have to go through the upgrade cycle. If you wanted the latest and greatest features, you had to pay for the upgrade. They went away from that towards more of this subscription-based model where, Microsoft Azure, for example, or Windows services, you're subscribing to these. You're not buying a bunch of servers and then having to buy the upgrade to get the next latest and greatest. You're subscribing to these assets, and in consumer behavior, you're much less likely to remove a subscription. When you're building applications, building your customer experience, building your database, building your records, all of your assets in the cloud, you're much less likely to mess with that from a subscription standpoint. So, I mean, those are huge numbers. They're controlling 62% of the market. Yeah, which, I mean, that's moderately terrifying for our new overlords, but it's 62% of the market, there is controlled by these three players. And that went up, that went up 4% in a quarter. Those are major league numbers, pretty impressive stuff. But I'm very interested to see what happens when the economy is going through a little bit of a shift. Not everyone's quite sure what's going to happen for about the last 12 years. The kind of the next part of this article is around what does that mean for MSPs, for system integrators, for resellers, as these partnerships evolve and these players kind of come out. The economy's changing as well, right? And I think anybody who's paying attention to the stock market, to cryptocurrencies, to federal interest rates, we've had access to very, very cheap capital for a long time. And organizations like AWS, I was listening to a great podcast, Invest Like the Best, and there's a gentleman on there who basically compared the AWS model to he called it his Field of Dreams company. If you build it, they will come. AWS is a terrifying competitor because if they enter your market, they're going to build a system that is all about customer experience and easy acquisitions, and they're not going to worry about revenue. That's a terrible thing to compete against, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna build out a platform, and they're not going to be concerned about revenue. They're just going to build it out in a Field of Dreams model. Kevin Costner in the middle of a cornfield. If you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
So the profits are going to come. They're not going to worry about that. So that's what AWS, Amazon Web Services, has been doing that for over a decade, and they've been very profitable over the last couple of years. But what's happening next is the economy's shifting a little bit. We're not quite sure what's going to happen with interest rates. We're not quite sure what's going to happen with the cost of capital. And that's going to affect how people make decisions around subscription services. And, do you really need those assets in the public cloud? What's the best way? What's the best return on your investment? How do you evaluate that, right? So if you're making decisions based on a rising interest rate environment, an economy, and people are maybe pulling back on their wallet and their spend a little bit. How's that all going to shake out? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how people's behavior shifts.
Just cite another Kevin Costner movie. Adam, would you say we are about to enter a water world and we are all looking for a map to dry land? Everybody knows that classic film, Waterworld, giant box office disaster.
I think it's a cult classic for how bad it is.
I won't lie, deep down, I love that movie.
Who's the bad guy in that movie? The smokers. Remember they were called the smokers? And
Yes.
they because they had gas and they could drive around. Their home base was like an oil tanker. That movie was so advanced. That was ESG and global warming and all that kind of stuff before it was, before it had a multiple on it for greenwashing companies. I mean, that's fantastic. Really, really impressive stuff, Kevin. Leading the way on the melting ice caps and the world being flooded. That was back in Captain Planet days. Remember Captain Planet? That was fantastic.
Oh man, welcome to our new show called Flashback to the 90s.
Anyways, I digress. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It might, people might figure out a new way to consume things. People might, pull back a little bit on their spend. We're an integrator, right? So the article talks a little bit about, what Accenture and Atos and Deloitte and HCL and all those guys are doing. What we're doing is we're basically beefing up on capabilities in each one of those fields as needed by the customer. We're not a Field of Dreams company. We don't do the whole let's build it and they will come. We typically take the cues from what our customers are trying to achieve, and then we invest in the skill sets, the resources, and the ability to execute on those with the building blocks that we have available to us. So right now, a big building block that a lot of our clients are asking us for help with is, the Azure and the Microsoft stack. Right? That's a huge dominant player. They're consolidating, back to my fantastic article around Game of Thrones, Paul, that I know everyone's read multiple times. There are different ways that people kind of consume and reach out to the market. Microsoft has a fantastic way of bundling all of their services together and making it, super simple for the consumer to secure their systems, move their applications to the cloud, enable remote workforce, and there's tons of other small like parts and pieces of the software stack that industries need that they're consolidating, right? So they're bundling in endpoint protection, they're bundling in backup, they're bundling in SIM and correlation services, and they have a whole cloud platform. They have databases, they have everything you really need to build an enterprise, and they're kind of putting it all together in a simple way for the consumer to build a cost per user model. That's a different strategy than what AWS is doing. AWS is going after the development class. They're going after the developers and enabling, speed to delivery of new code and shipping out applications and, DevOps and all that kind of good stuff around that. And then Google's strategy is around the analytics and figuring out exactly what your customers' decision-making process is and how are they getting to you and how are they using your platforms and all that kind of stuff. So they're all different strategies. They all have parts and pieces of each other's strategy embedded in what they do. And the crazy thing about technology is all these frenemies are all working together at the same time too, right? So you can't go anywhere in the technology space without touching some type of an application that's, either hosted in Amazon, built on a Microsoft OS, or, advertised through the Google network. It's all intertwined. So I think for system integrators, MSPs, resellers, even if the economy tanks or we go through a really, really challenging cycle here, the amount of complexity out there, fantastic opportunity to help people achieve what they're trying to do because things are so interconnected. A lot of times people think it's simple, but no, it's getting immensely more complex every day.
So when I was reading the article, and correct me if I'm wrong, so it sounds like AWS, and you mentioned this too, Google, AWS, and Microsoft all kind of focusing on different like clients, skill sets, but it sounds like everybody's looking for MSSP partners. Is that right?
Well, so you need people to carry the water, right? You need people to move the bricks from one pile to the other pile. And so you need people to believe in your story and believe in your strategy. And that's what the MSP the integration in the reseller market is. It's their path to the people who are actually writing the checks for these subscription services. So you got to get those folks on board.
Is MSSP, is that new?
MSSP is managed security service provider. They're going to have to touch all of these different platforms, right? If you're a hosted cloud-based SIM provider, you got to ingest logs from everybody. You got to be able to help your clients visualize where their threats are, no matter where they're hosted. So that's the fun part about how complex these systems are, is if you're going to provide security, you got to meet your customers where they are. And hey, by the way, Mr. Security Provider, looks like 62% of this market is controlled by AWS, Azure, and Google. So you might want to, tune up the old training on AWS, Azure, and Google, because that's what people are buying.
I see. Okay.
The partner programs are interesting because, candidly, it's always funny to me when I see AWS partner programs, because AWS is an organization that was built on destroying the middleman, right? So AWS built their company, Amazon, as an initial bookstore, competitor to the bookstores out there, cut out the middleman who used to deliver books to the end user, right? So they went through a huge disintermediation around, you don't need to go to the store. You don't need to go to the bookstore. You don't even need to go to the grocery store anymore. Just they'll become the platform, and they'll directly support the end user making the purchasing decision. They didn't really have a partner program of any merit, a few years ago. I think they've come to realize that they need some aspects of the reseller channel and the MSP channel to interface with the enterprise, with public sector, and a few others. They have a huge direct business, but they need the channel to help them to deliver. It's just always funny when you see AWS, from a disintermediation standpoint, recruiting partners. Microsoft, on the other hand, has kind of been a channel organization for a very long time. They've kind of always built out that partner model. They've always used resellers. Google is another one that was, kind of relatively new to the channel, and how they integrate with, resellers or MSPs or MSSPs, but they're all seeing the need for it, and they're all investing in those programs and really trying to get people to tune up their competencies in their specific programs. The strategy is you and I both joke around about Gary Vaynerchuk all the time, and I don't think I dropped any F-bombs on this podcast yet, so it's pretty good. But he's a big dude who focuses on attention. He's a marketing guy. And one way you get people to buy in your program, one people you get way to buy in your technology and in your story, is you get their attention. And the one way you get people's attention is you mandate that they go through these partner programs in order to achieve certain levels of competency to deliver your product and services. Do you really need them? Are those partner programs necessary? Does it raise your awareness? Could be, but it also captures your attention. And when it captures your attention, if you're learning about Microsoft, if you're learning about AWS, if you're learning about Google, all amazing partners, all amazing programs, but you tend to sell your own book. So if you're spending time reviewing and learning and documenting, what you can do with AWS or what you can do with Microsoft, you're going to sell their stuff. It's not, it's not, what do they call it, rocket surgery,
I love it. That's really helpful. Thanks, Adam. Again, if anybody wants to read Adam's articles, and you should, I say if you want to, but of course you want to.
When you have the opportunity to fully dedicate, 6 minutes.
Link is in the description.
Absolutely. So, and then it's always good to see how these people are moving the cheese around the cloud, and who's kind of competing with who. And for anyone out there who's got any questions around any of these capabilities or services or anything like that, our organization's been around coming up on 40 years. We've seen a couple partner programs in our day, and happy to talk to anybody about what we've seen.
Thanks again, Adam, for joining me. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Paul. You too.
Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.